Hi, everyone. I'm Megan Warren, and this is Me Reimagined, a space where we unlock the frozen parts of ourselves, the parts we hide from and hide from the world, so we can learn to believe we're enough. Hello, I am here with the fabulous Vanessa Tracey.
Hi.
And today we are doing a car karaoke episode. And this is where we look at not enoughness and the ways that it's embedded in our societal systems through the lens of pop culture. So we're going to be singing way out loud today. And Vanessa and I go way back. I think it might be 8 years now.
2015 we met.
Ooh, even longer. Okay, then. Okay. So we are definitely old friends. One of us is older than the other. But we have a deep, rich history involving Prince Harry and marshmallows. And so today I tapped her, or begged her actually, to come and film with me on the podcast. This is our first video as well. So it's 2 new firsts. So Vanessa is breaking this cherry with me. And we are going to be belting out Dua Lipa's I Don't Give a Fuck. And then we're going to be looking at that and seeing what we can pull out in terms of these themes. So, Vanessa, welcome. It's really a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to start all of these new firsts with you.
And you're very excited to belt it out.
I mean, I just say apologies in advance.
So I like to open with a bunch of questions for my guests that are a bit out of the ordinary, that give you a better picture of who Vanessa is. So my first question is, what are 3 words that best describe you?
I would like to describe myself as creative, as free-spirited, and adventurous.
And you will see all of these 3 illustrated in this video. Starting with, what is something that you bought that you should probably throw away and probably never will? In fact, I think that you brought something to demonstrate.
When I told you what this was, there was no option not to bring it. So I'm actually going to put it on right now. This year, I did a trip to Uzbekistan. And I was in an amazing city called Khiva, and it's got a really old historical center, and we learn all about these traditional ways of keeping warm. And I was told that this hat really suited me, that it's fake fox fur, and I tried it on and somebody convinced me to buy it, and I thought, you know what, I definitely will wear this. Never worn it, never will. And I don't think I'll throw it away either.
I think you probably walk around in your apartment quite often wearing that.
When it's a bit chilly.
For those of you who are not watching the video, Vanessa now has a gigantic, fabulous, I mean, it is really fabulous. And I can't quite convince her that I actually would wear this around town. But it is also the most ridiculous hat I've ever seen.
Do you think Joe would wear it?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Well,
okay then. Question number 4 is, what would your drag queen name be? You're supposed to be wearing the hat. What do you answer that?
My drag queen name would be Ginger Nuts.
Very good. Very good. I would clap for that. Okay. What is something joyful that brings tears to your eyes?
I absolutely love playing hide and seek with my dog.
Tell us about Elvis.
I have a black poodle at home called Elvis, who is in fact the king of the house. And we like to play hide and seek with toys. And he knows all of the spots, the famous ones. So he goes straight to those. So you have to get very, very creative. But it's something that I love doing so much.
Okay. What are 3 major themes in your writing? Because for those of you who don't yet know Vanessa is a communications person. She works at several different places, which I won't name in this episode because this is not the focus of the episode. But she has recently started her own travel blog, and it is fabulous. And so you will be able to find all of these in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Yes, so can I take this off now?
Yeah.
I write about travel. I'm fortunate enough to have been to many places, some of them through work, some of them actually with you. And literature has always been the biggest love in my life. I love reading. I studied English, and I've recently started having the courage to put my writing out there. I wanted to write about my travel adventures, but the theme seems to have broadened out a little bit, more about, I guess, what we allow ourselves to do at home and what is more permissible abroad, how certain memories are associated with places, and also, I guess, why we go out and explore in the first place. And I write a lot about love as well.
Vanessa has a particularly great article on the kinds of guys that you meet abroad and what you should do and what you should not do related to these guys. Okay, let's sing. Here we go. You talk that sweet talk, but I ain't coming back. Cut you off, I don't need your love. You can have all you want. Your time is up, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. It's too late now. So say it, get gone, shut up. Okay, what is the main message that you have received from your not enough gremlin?
My not enough gremlin tells me that I'm not ambitious enough and that I am never going to find work or a way to make a living that fulfills me.
And do you think that being not fulfilled in your work is part of what makes you not ambitious?
I feel like sometimes my not enough gremlin causes me to put my head in the sand and then pick up work or join organizations that aren't necessarily aligned with what really makes me happy. I know that fulfillment shouldn't always come from work. And in the last 2 years, I have been trying to find that with other things, through my hobbies, through my hiking, through my writing, through music. So trying to reconcile what success actually looks like. But there's still a gremlin that's telling me that you need to go the more traditional way, to go the more conventional path.
Stuff yourself into that box.
Exactly.
Check all those boxes as you go up.
Exactly.
Yeah. That is not a recipe for success. I can tell you from experience. Speaking of success, what is the worst job you've ever had?
It was my first job. When I was 15, I worked in a fish restaurant in the UK. So I was a waitress in the evenings, but in the day I would man the seafood stall. So I can shuck an oyster. I can tell if a whelk is fresh or not.
You eat seafood?
No, I eat fish, but I'm not a massive seafood fan. And every time I would then go to a party, I was told that Vanessa smells like fish or that I had fishy fingers.
I bet that made you the life of the party.
I was always the favorite guest.
I'm sure. Oh, and do you have any tips for getting fish smell out?
It's like fairy liquid.
What is fairy liquid?
How do we say that in the US? Washing up liquid.
Oh, I was going to say that like magic dust. Okay. No. So washing up liquid after all that experience, that's the best thing you can recommend.
It was better than soap.
Okay. When you have it here, the expert on fishy fingers. To get rid of them, it's not lemon, it's not borax or other strong agents. Wow, I can't even speak. It is washing up liquid. Any particular brand?
Fairy liquid.
Oh, my brand.
My Brits out here will know what I mean.
Okay. Now, you are rather young. I say that as someone not so young, but do you have a sense already of what your purpose is in the world? And if so, how is that taking shape?
I am trying to shift my purpose rather than kind of climbing conventional notions of success. I was one of those geeks that absolutely loved school. I was always the one with my hand up. And I'm still a student. I'm learning languages. I feel like every time I pick up a book, I learn something. My purpose in life, I think, is to learn as much as possible and to always kind of tap into the student that I enjoyed being so much.
What's cool is if you take that approach to life as an experiment, it is recommended and evidence-based for finding fulfillment and satisfaction.
Interesting.
So I think you are on the road to success, my friend.
Maybe.
A lot of times along the journey, I have found that things happen that feel senseless. They don't necessarily make sense. And it's only with hindsight that you see how they were building blocks or very critical pieces that are leading to a very intentional place. Do you have a sense of something that feels senseless, but now with perspective as it fits?
I think I have two answers to this. I think when I was younger, I played the piano for 10 years. And as soon as I went to university, I just decided to stop. It was impractical to bring a keyboard with me. Didn't touch it again for another 10 years. And only last year, I was cat sitting for a friend. And I decided to start messing around, I guess, with her keyboard. And it brought me so much joy that now I have a piano in my apartment. It's something that I do regularly. I never felt like I should be learning the piano, but I guess working your way up through the grades, always kind of trying to improve. Then the fact that I dropped it and left to nothing perhaps didn't make much sense. But now that I'm playing it again, it is an outlet. I do it for fun. I practice because I want to practice rather than because I want to get better, and I get better by consequence. And that has really taught me actually a lesson with how I want to approach the way that I write. I don't necessarily want to write always with a specific outcome, kind of see where the ideas and the writing and the creativity takes me. So that lesson that I've had through an instrument, I've kind of also applied to other areas in my life as well. Another thing is that I've had jobs where at the time they haven't really felt like they've made a lot of sense. They have been quite chaotic. I've worked for startups. I've worked in crisis modes. Often I've kind of felt like, why am I here? What the hell am I doing? What is this for? But you're able to draw skills that you can then apply for later in life. And it's also actually what led me to experiment more with my hobbies or with my writing or with music.
What kind of music do you play?
All kinds of things. I like playing pop songs. I like playing classical music. I like playing blues.
And do you feel that that music is a way to put you back in touch with yourself after you've come out of that sort of box that you're fitting yourself into professionally, and then you come home and you're playing? Do you think it brings you back to yourself?
I think it does, because it's only for me.
Mm.
I'm not trying to work towards a grade. I'm not performing for anyone. I'm just doing it for myself.
What is a question you have yet to answer in your life?
I don't know where this sense of drive comes from, or the pressure that I put on myself. I put myself under a lot of pressure. I'm my own harshest critic. I think a lot of us are. I don't know where that comes from. It's still something that I'm trying to figure out. Where does the internal pressure come from, as opposed to what motivates me or what drives me?
Do you sense that it's a push energy versus a pull energy?
It's definitely a push.
Okay. And what does it say about you if you stop pushing?
I don't often give myself a chance to sit still, to stop moving, or to sit in that piano seat, or to try and write something that I'm not too worried about what the outcome is, or see where that goes. And actually, I think that giving yourself time and space is actually sometimes where magic happens. But I don't always allow that for myself.
Hey, so I think it's time to sing, baby.
Here we go.
You called me, but you missed me. Last time me. Yes, you heard my songs. Too busy, no business. Go find someone who wants to listen. If you think I was born yesterday, you're not me wrong. So cut me off. I don't need your love. I already cried, that's why I'm done. I ain't moving on. Since we said goodbye, I cut you off. I don't need your love. So you get what I want. Your time is up, I'll tell you why. Okay. So now that you've heard our beautiful voices, apparently we've got to learn some lyrics around here. Let's take a look at this song. So one of the lyrics in Dua Lipa's I Don't Give a Fuck, which you will find the link to in the show notes, because I know you'll want to get in your car, take a drive, and turn this up. Or if you're on a walk and you don't own a car, maybe you put your headphones in and you sing in the fields. You can also sing on the street, especially if you're wearing Vanessa's hat. Okay, so one of the things that she says is, if you think I care about you now, well, boy, I don't give a, and she doesn't actually say the word fuck, but your brain always says it for you. So, and as you know from a previous episode, it's one of my favorite words. So we say it out loud and proud here. It's a bit of a rebellion about how women are supposed to act. Mm-hmm. So my question is, why is vulnerability often perceived as weakness? Actually, why don't we do this? Let's define vulnerability. So when we say that somebody's being vulnerable, what do we mean?
I think it actually means that we're being honest, because we are putting ourselves in a position where we can get hurt, or we are displaying our true emotions and feelings. So I would actually say that vulnerability is honesty, but you are putting yourself in a position of, I guess, danger, a position of uncertainty, particularly when it comes to other people's emotions and in relationships.
So you have just voiced my favorite definition of vulnerability by Brene Brown. So you have it here, Vanessa Tracey, Brene Brown.
That was not intentional.
No. But that's actually what I like to refer to. Brene Brown defines vulnerability as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And that's exactly what you've said. It's those things inside us that we often hide, that we don't share with the world. And when we share them, it feels risky. We don't know what that outcome is. We're not controlling it.
So I would just say that sometimes we need those songs. We need those I don't give a fuck songs. Because actually, when we're singing those songs, and you're right, people are going to belt it in their car, belt it in the street, or belt it badly like we just did, because that is actually a moment where we really, really do care. And we're kind of blocking off those emotions, or putting down a barrier between what is hurting us. But that doesn't necessarily lead to great outcomes, because we are just suppressing how we are feeling rather than connecting to it, tapping into it, trying to understand it.
But are we putting up a barrier just for external people, or is it also a barrier like you then don't know what's going on inside?
I think sometimes we protect ourselves from pain. And again, if we're talking about I don't give a fuck in the context of a breakup, maybe those emotions are too raw to acknowledge immediately. So you need to give yourself a little bit of time, which I can completely understand. I had a breakup in March, and I broke it off with someone who I was really, really excited about. And I didn't cry. I just went I kind of went in lockdown. I went in crisis mode, and I just kind of pushed through. And I think that that was my immediate or first reaction to, this is how I survive. This is how I go and get on with things. This is how I go out into the world and show up for my day. Now, much later on, in a very, very embarrassing scenario, all of those emotions came out in the summer, and I probably cried for about 4 hours straight. I wake up with those eyes that are really puffy.
Yeah, it's like you got hit with a baseball bat.
And it came out much later, and in a way that was much more violent, I guess. Yeah. So I think that sometimes we're shut down because that is it's almost an instinctive response to protect ourselves, but that doesn't always lead to the best outcomes later on. And those feelings harden and crystallize, and those barriers then become harder to break through when you do meet somebody new, or you do encounter a similar situation. That becomes your reflex.
I think you're right. When you use the word crystallize, what came up for me is that emotions that are unprocessed, that have been there for a long time, we do need those songs that allow us to sort of get through the moment for that moment, because a lot of times we can't process. But then what happens is we separate them off, we fragment them off, and we don't deal with them. But then they do crystallize inside us. They get hard, but that means they get a lot harder to get out. I think we don't realize how much those messages and those feelings direct what we're doing, the choices that we make, how we respond, or in many cases, react to things. And it's not intentional.
And I think that then leads us to go for what we perceive as a safer choice, whether that is a safer choice of relationship, a safer choice of career. And it doesn't allow us to take the risks that perhaps something inside us does actually want. I like what you said about the box as well. That box is going to come out, and when it does, it's like Pandora. But yeah, I think vulnerability is often perceived as dangerous, and I think that it's almost an instinct or a reflex to go a certain path that perhaps feels more comfortable, even though it doesn't reflect what we value or what we truly want, or that enables us in a way to 100% act ourselves.
So when we do that, we basically make fear-based decisions. It's all comes from scarcity rather than values-based decisions. And so the life that you end up with, that you get, is a life that's created at the heart by scarcity rather than what you intentionally are building toward.
I historically dated people where I knew I didn't want anything long-term with, or a person that I knew that I didn't want to build a relationship with. I wasn't open to feelings of betrayal or things not working out. And so I deliberately chose some bad choices because that felt like a safer option.
And was that informed by a breakup that you had
a long time ago?
Did you process those feelings at the time?
Not at the time.
So you boxed them up, and then that informed every relationship you had. You chose relationships in that time specifically because they weren't offering an emotional availability.
Exactly that. I would then go and choose relationships that I knew wouldn't develop into emotional openness, or just wouldn't develop because the person was entirely inappropriate or our lives were incompatible. The guy lived in another country, the other side of the world, or things like that. And as much as I enjoy the adventurous and the fun side of things, I think it's because I felt safer pursuing love or romance with someone that I knew that I would never have to fully be vulnerable with.
It can be tricky to show up and be seen. I am trying to do that now. I'm practicing that daily. I have a wonderful partner who is very forgiving because I am ungainly in my attempts, although I am consistent and I'm persistent. But, to ask for what I need and to show up as me. This is the first time I'm trying to do that. And it's been a game changer just in terms of how I feel about myself. It's also really helping him develop patience. But yeah, it's different because I am processing emotions in the moment now instead of boxing them up.
That's great.
Yes, it can feel messy. Oh my God, it feels messy. Okay, I think we should sing again.
Yeah, why don't we do it from the beginning? Can we put the lyrics up on the screen?
It's gonna be loud. Remember that weekend when my best friend caught you creeping. You blamed it all on the alcohol. So I made my decision to make your bed sleeping and play the victim and switch your position. I'm through, I'm done. So I cut you off. I don't need your love. You ain't right enough. I've been done. I've been moving on since we said goodbye. I cut you off. I don't need your love. So you can try all you want. Your time is up. I'll tell you why. You say it. Sorry. Say it. Get going. Shut up. Cause if you think I care about you now, well, boy, I don't give a fuck. Wow, okay. Oh my God. It's gonna get attention just because you're like, have you heard these chicks sing?
We're gonna become viral sensations.
You're gonna get sued. Like the breakdancer in karaoke. You're gonna get sued for permission. Oh, that may be true. Okay, well, I have another question for you.
Okay.
How different do you think your relationships would be if you showed up in the relationship with all of you and were openly vulnerable about that?
I think it would mean that I would actually put my needs and express them more openly, which would actually lead to more fulfillment.
I used to spend a lot of time on Bumble back before I met my partner. I think I spent a lot of time on Bumble hiding. I spent a lot of time playing the game, you know, presenting a front, a facade that I thought would make people attracted to me. And ultimately, maybe that worked because I had dates, but then the dates never went anywhere. Even if we had 2 or 3 dates, in the end, it always ended up fizzling out after a few months because I didn't show up as me. So even if I got accepted and I belonged, the guy wasn't meeting me. He was meeting the facade. And so when you have a relationship with a facade, the person behind the facade is not going to be fulfilled because they have real feelings and needs that aren't being expressed, aren't being met. And it's not really fair to the other person, actually.
How was the facade different to the you that you felt inside?
Well, I always used to do this thing where I shape shifted. And so my interests were their interests. So,
Oh, that's quite common.
yeah. Oh, I mean, I shifted in all ways. I read the books that they read, I listened to the music that they listened to. And yeah, I became their greatest date, right? Because somebody who reflects back how great you are and then adopts all your interests, why are they not a great person to hang out with? And then, you start to get down the road a few dates. And then my inner child is like banging inside saying, "What the hell is going on?" And I'm saying, "Get over there," and kicking her to the curb. And then you're basically developing these relationships that are setting you up for failure.
I can really, really relate, and I think it's the overachiever in me. Like, even if I'm not interested, they're gonna have the time of their life because I want it to be a great date rather than I want to actually be my messy, open self. I think also there's a lot of stigma that comes with dating in your 30s about what certain women want. I think it's a really quite a difficult age to navigate dating. Some people are kind of really taking one path and really settling down. Other people seem to be kind of, I think there's a meme that's like, "See, oh, I could date the guy at university and his father at the same time." I think being open and honest and actually turning up to a date and being like, yeah, you know what? I actually want to explore something that could be a bit more serious. I really struggle to say and to be honest to it because I feel like then people run away from that or they get frightened by that.
When you say what you really want.
Yes.
And then it's also that when we were talking about vulnerability, it is sharing what you really want. You're taking a risk without a certain answer of, yes, absolutely, I want that too. So a lot of us, I think, shut that down. We build that big wall. But then it's ultimately such a failing recipe because you end up developing a relationship, but you're not in the relationship.
Yeah.
Your facade is in the relationship.
Yeah. You're not getting any of your own personal needs fulfilled, or you're not finding happiness in a way that suits both of you, not just one partner.
Yeah. And my gremlin certainly told me when I started wanting to ask for my needs to be met that I didn't deserve to have them met and that my role was to nurture others and to take care of other people and not to take care of myself, which I now understand is crazy because I mean, even in airplanes, they tell you to put the oxygen mask on yourself so you can actually continue to support and help other people rather than you put it on your kid and then you pass out because you don't have any oxygen. And it's such a good metaphor for life. Okay, let me ask you, why is our habit to prove self-sufficiency and sort of turn away from others rather than being vulnerable and turning toward others?
So I'd like to consider myself as very independent as well. I do a lot of things by myself. I've been by myself for quite some time. And I also take pride in my independence. I feel like I need to prove it sometimes. That being said, I think that need to show that we are fine, that need to be by ourselves and do everything by ourselves, then shuts off perhaps the possibility for connection or for asking for help. And I'm talking about from friends or from family, but actually texting a good friend and being like, you know what, I'm not okay. And then maybe go for a walk, going for a hot chocolate, talking things through. Yesterday I had a conversation with a friend because she texted me and said, I just feel like I want to curl up in a ball. And we chatted for an hour and a half and we put the worlds to rights. And I think that nurturing those connections, nurturing those friendships that really go both ways and that we can be open with nourishes us and can help us in a time of need.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that our reaction is, even from our closest friends sometimes, to hide. So I moved from the US to Europe and I had a child and was a single mom and working a full-time job with travel. And because I'm an overachiever like you, I wanted to do everything 100%. And you suddenly have this baby and you have this job that you did at 110%. You got to continue doing that. Only you now got to do the baby job at 110%. So really, I need to be 220% of a person. And I mean, just the literal exhaustion. And of course, I wanted to maintain the old life that I had. So going out till all hours, but then having to wake up at 5 a.m. with a baby. I struggled during that time and I didn't speak to anybody about it. I tried to maintain that facade. And it basically wasn't until the world was crumbling that I finally turned to someone. It's almost as if I denied needing anything, denied it to myself. But what's funny is when I finally said something to someone, and it was such a relief. And then it was a shared thing. It did feel weak in the beginning. I'm not going to lie. I didn't love how my identity had to shift to accept that I had to ask for help. But once I did that and realized actually it's a strength, it turned out to be such a gift for the friends that I told at that time. And I know that now because now friends have asked me and I have sat there with them while they've cried.
Why do you think? And it's, I knew you through that time and we all maintained the facade because when we saw you, we didn't talk about the deep things because this was our fun time, I guess. Maybe we had a chunk of time, we had a lunch or we had a coffee and we wanted to keep things light and we didn't really go into things. Why do you think that we all maintained the facade?
To be honest, I would guess it's because often the person who's trying to hold it all together doesn't give permission to anyone. I definitely didn't give permission only because I knew if I opened that door at work, the mess was going to come out.
The box was going to open.
And in some ways, the box was opening. You mentioned Pandora's box earlier, as if you open it all at once. And there is a time period where you do open it and poof, it kind of explodes. But I think before that, there's almost this thing where it starts to kind of self-event. Like it gets so full and then the behavior just kind of comes out whether you want it to or not. So whether that's you scream at your child, which is what I did, or you go shopping and you shop until you don't have any more money left that month, or you drink yourself into a hole because you're looking for the release. It vented a lot throughout that time, but I knew because I was putting so much energy into holding all that if I opened it on purpose, I wasn't sure what was going to come out and how I was going to be able to control and contain it, because I think a lot of this is about surrender. And I thought surrender was weakness, was failure, was giving up, but it's not. Going through this with community where everybody's carrying a part of something, that is so much better. But what's interesting to me is how that shapes our connections. So if you walk around and you are self-sufficient and you don't need anybody, you cut off that connection with another person. Okay, I do want to ask this one last question, and then we'll be done. We're going to sing one more time too.
Of course.
How does not acknowledging feelings reinforce messages of unworthiness?
I think particularly in the face of betrayal or rejection, if you don't work through all of the messy stuff, maybe you then have a tendency to blame yourself. That isn't the message that I get from the song necessarily. There's a feeling perhaps that if you'd have done things differently, there'd have been a different outcome. If you had acted or responded differently, then maybe there would have been a different outcome. sometimes when you don't work through the immediate feelings, perhaps then you have a tendency to see that as your own failure, or you shift that negativity towards yourself rather than something that has been done to you.
You internalize it as you didn't do enough.
I think so.
And then you carry that with you, and that viewpoint informs everything that you do and how you approach the world.
Or another feeling is, okay, well, I knew all along that this was going to happen, or I knew he was an asshole anyway, but I still put myself through the relationship. Why did I put myself through that?
Mm-hmm. And then also, how could I be so stupid? I knew this. I saw this. I should have been smarter about this.
Yes, 100%.
And then we walk away with those things that we now think about ourselves. We're not capable. We're not smart. We're not pretty enough. We're not lovable. And for every relationship we form in the future, every job we after, when you feel not enough, then it changes all your decisions in those things. And the life that you create is not the one that you deserve. So that's why I'd like to mainstream this, because then the earlier that we become aware of it and we start working with those messages to shift them, to change them, to prove them wrong, then we get very different outcomes.
I love it.
Do you think that the things in our lives are things that happen intentionally? We take something from them, even if it's a challenging thing like a betrayal, like a loss of a job, and we can get very intentional about how that informs our future. But at the same time, I look at some of the choices that I made, and with my son's father, it was a toxic relationship, and I put up with it right until the moment that I realized that my son was going to witness this, and he was going to see me being treated like that. And then he was going to potentially imitate that. And I thought, no, I don't want this. And that made me quit. But when it was just me, I didn't quit. I thought this is what I deserve. If I hadn't internalized those messages, I never would have been in that relationship. And you think how much in your life would be different. And I think the whole damn thing would be different.
I think there's a massive difference between saying no and saying, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, because one is real. One shows what you think about yourself. One sets boundaries that honor who you are. And then one pretends. It's that facade. It's hiding. And I definitely very much want to give fucks. Like literally everything good in life, you give a fuck about. And that is when you feel most alive.
Yes.
When you don't, when you give no fucks, you don't feel alive. You feel dead inside. And so all these Instagram hacks of how do you give no fucks? I don't want to. I cancel them. They're out.
Gone.
Well, thank you very much, Vanessa. Thank you for being willing to come out and sing and belt things out. And we're going to do one more round. Thank you for joining us. It's been really a pleasure to have you here today.
I've had so much fun. Thank you so much.
Here we go.
Get to me. You're on your knees. Boy, I don't give a fuck about you.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as I did hosting it. I feel grateful that I got to sing out loud with a very dear friend of mine, Vanessa Tracey, who I've known for a decade now and who has so much wisdom packed into a very fit package with a much better voice than was showcased in this episode. You can count on my voice, however, remaining ridiculously off-key for all future car karaoke episodes. But while I don't have pitch, I am incredibly grateful for song, for having a voice and feeling the joy of singing. It brings me closer to what matters in life. I feel grateful for the friendships that I've made with amazing women like Vanessa, who will be silly with me, will challenge me, will teach me things, will hold me when I cry, and who will tell me the hard truths. If you have experienced the strength and worthiness and want to get more intentional, and you need a friend to hold your hand, to challenge your gremlin thoughts, or to help you create a worthy vision of yourself, use the Calendly link in the show notes to schedule a free discovery call. I'd love to hear your story and pay the love that I have reaped forward. If you found this episode interesting or useful, there are 3 low effort, high impact ways that you can support us. First, rate the podcast. Leave us some stars. Second, follow the podcast. Get updates when new episodes drop. And lastly, share it with a friend who might need to hear that they're amazing. Send them the link to the podcast and let them know that you see they're doing their best and that they are enough. You can find all episodes of Me Reimagined on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you leave a voice note or a comment, I'll reply. With love, until next time.
You do not carry this all alone. No, you do not carry this all alone. This is way too big for you to carry this on your own. So you do not carry this all alone.